They always said I was the disappointment, the selfish one, the girl who ran away from responsibility while the real family pulled themselves together. But when I walked into that courtroom, no fanfare, no entourage, just me and my coat, the judge looked straight at me and said, "You're the governor?" And just like that, their mouths snapped shut. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. I hadn't been home in 9 years. Not really home, just near enough to the edges of where I grew up to make my hands itch. The courthouse still sat at the corner of Palm and 8th Street, like it had back when I was 16 and naive enough to think that justice looked the same for everyone. The paint on the bricks had chipped, the magnolia tree outside looked half dead, and the flag over the door flapped too slow for how fast my heart was racing. My mother had called me 4 days ago. I didn't even recognize the number. When I answered and heard her voice, sharp and hissing like a paper cut, I nearly hung up out of instinct. "It's your sister," she said, skipping past hello like she hadn't ghosted me for almost a decade. "Tasha's in trouble. Court date's Monday. She could go to jail. We need you." I almost laughed out loud. We hadn't been a wee since I walked out of our cramped duplex with 2 trash bags and a $74 bus ticket to Atlanta. But I didn't hang up. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I wanted to see how far they'd let themselves fall before remembering I existed. Maybe I wanted to look my mother in the eye and see if she still believed her silence wasn't betrayal. So I came. I took the red eye, wore a plain navy coat, tied my braids back, no security detail, no press. I told my assistant to cancel the Monday meetings and keep my schedule light. Personal time, I'd said. She didn't ask questions. Camille never did. I parked 2 blocks away, walked with my hands in my pockets and my chin low. I didn't expect a parade. But I also didn't expect the ache to punch so deep into my ribs when I saw my brother Marcus standing outside, smoking like he'd never quit, wearing the same North Face jacket he'd had in high school. He did a double take when he saw me. Merc. "Well, look who decided to remember she has a family." "Hi, Marcus," I said evenly. No hug. No warmth. Inside, the courthouse felt like a time capsule. I could smell the same industrial-strength floor polish and cheap coffee. I spotted our mother sitting on a bench, clutching her purse like it held salvation. Her hair was streaked with gray now, edges unlaid, eyes sharper than ever. She looked up at me, then stood. "Imani," she said. Not warmly, not coldly. Just my name, like she wasn't sure she had the right to say it. I nodded. She pulled me in for a hug I didn't return. Her perfume was the same, white diamonds and broken promises. "She's scared," my mother whispered. "She needs her big sister." I didn't answer. I followed her into the courtroom. Tasha sat at the defense table, hunched small in an oversized blazer. Her hair was limp, makeup caked under her eyes. She didn't even glance at me. Just stared straight ahead like she could erase the moment if she didn't blink. This wasn't how I imagined our first reunion. But then again, I stopped imagining reunions a long time ago. Let me tell you something about being the oldest daughter in a poor black family. Your life isn't your own. It belongs to bills, babysitting, and building dreams you're not allowed to chase. My father died when I was 11. Throat. No warning. 1 minute he was singing to Sam Cooke while fixing the toaster, and the next he was on the kitchen floor. After that, I became the second parent. I cleaned, cooked, helped with homework, and gave up sleep for a house that never once said thank you. By 17, I had a full-ride scholarship offer to Howard. Political science, pre-law track. My guidance counselor cried when I told her I wasn't going. Tasha needed braces. Marcus got suspended again. Mama needed help with rent. Guess whose savings account got drained? "You'll get another chance," Mama had said. "You're smart, you'll make it work." But chances don't come back when they're stolen. I spent 2 years working retail, then another in night school. I started a nonprofit for teen girls in underfunded neighborhoods, launched a citywide mentorship initiative, Then ran for city council because I got tired of asking men in suits to care about us. I won. Then I kept winning. Now I sit in meetings with senators who used to ignore my emails, and when I talk, people take notes. But none of that mattered in this courtroom, where I was just the invisible sister who never sent birthday cards. A bailiff called the room to order. The judge entered. Old white man. Silver hair. Upset eyes. Probably spent more years on the bench than I'd been alive. He scanned the courtroom, paused when he saw me, and tilted his head. "Is that Governor Redd?" Heads turned. I didn't move. Didn't smile. I met his gaze and gave him a small nod. "Yes, Your Honor," I said softly. My mother gasped. I felt Marcus stiffen behind me. Tasha finally turned her head. Her eyes widened. The judge smiled. "It's good to see you again, Governor. You've done impressive work." "Thank you, sir." Silence stretched in the room like pulled wire. I could feel the burn of my mother's stare. She leaned in and hissed, "Governor? You're the damn governor." I didn't look at her. "That's what he said." Tasha opened her mouth, closed it, whispered, "Since when?" I let the question hang. I didn't come here to show off. I didn't need to flex. I came because part of me still hoped they'd changed. That maybe they'd ask for help with humility instead of assumption. But the look on my mother's face. It wasn't pride. It was offense. Like my success was a betrayal. "She could have said something," Marcus muttered. "No," I said. "I couldn't." I sat down at the back. The judge began the proceedings. Charges. Embezzlement, wire fraud, forgery. Tasha had stolen over 50 grand from her employer. Used fake invoices to route the money into a private account. Her lawyer argued stress, mental health, financial pressure. All true things. All things I'd survived without stealing. At recess, they cornered me in the hallway. "Why didn't you help her?" Mama demanded. "You didn't even tell us you were doing all that," Marcus added. "You think you're better now?" I think I finally stopped explaining myself to people who never listened. Tasha stepped forward. "You really wouldn't testify for me? Just say I'm a good person." "I don't know who you are anymore," I said. "And when I did, you laughed at me for reading books in the dark. Remember that." She looked away. "I'm not here to fix this," I said quietly. "You broke it. You live with it." I walked away before they could respond. The judge resumed court. The lawyer pleaded for leniency. The judge asked if anyone wanted to give a character statement. Understood. Every head turned. "Actually, Your Honor," I said. "I decline." He nodded solemnly. "Very well." I sat back down. Didn't flinch when Tasha's shoulders fell. Didn't blink when my mother wiped a tear. My silence was louder than 1,000 speeches. Let them sit with it. Let them remember the day the failure became the one person in the room with real power, and chose not to use it for them. Let them wonder what might have happened if they had loved me when it mattered. They used to say I was too sensitive, that I overreacted, that I took everything too personally. That's what my mother said the day she told me she'd used the money I saved for college to put down on a new car. "We needed it more than you needed some fancy dorm room," she said, like she was doing me a favor. Like a car payment was worth more than my future. I said nothing then, and I said nothing now, as I sat in the back row of that courthouse, watching my sister's lawyer fumble through his argument like a nervous intern. He wasn't very good. Too slow. Too emotional. Kept calling Tasha a misunderstood young woman, like the phrase was supposed to wash the crimes away. The prosecutor was sharper. Methodical. And she had receipts, actual ones. Screenshots, bank transfers, emails from Tasha's work account. I crossed my legs slowly, hands folded in my lap. My coat collar brushed my chin. The courtroom air was cold, but I wasn't shivering. Across the room, my mother kept darting glances back at me, like she still hadn't processed what I'd said. "Governor." That word clanged around their heads like a dropped hammer. She'd leaned over earlier and whispered, "You didn't think to tell your family?" I'd whispered back, "You're not my family." You're just people I used to owe. Now, she was trying to piece together a version of reality where her biggest failure had somehow risen to the top of state politics without her noticing. It didn't make sense to her, because her version of me had stopped existing the day I moved out. She'd frozen me in time. Frustrated, broke, scared. But I didn't stay that girl. I couldn't afford to. My phone buzzed quietly in my coat pocket. A text from Camille. Just saw the court moment on Twitter. Want me to manage the press? So much for keeping a low profile. I texted back. Let it breathe. No statement yet. They would eat it up. The silent governor walking into her sister's trial, no cameras, no makeup team, no security. Just the weight of 10 years' worth of buried rage. Tasha's lawyer stumbled over his closing statement. I watched her face. She looked tired. She wasn't the golden girl anymore. Not the pretty one with the sweet voice and the 100 excuses. Her curls were flat. Her skin was dry. And under all that foundation I saw fear. When we were kids, I used to sneak into her room at night when our parents were screaming and sing to her until she fell asleep. She'd wrap her arms around my waist and whisper, "Don't leave me, Imani. Promise." I promised every time. And I broke it. The day I left, she didn't even say goodbye. I waited by the front door with my 2 bags, hoping anyone would ask me to stay. No one did. That memory used to crush me. But now I realized they were never losing me. They were using me. Until I stopped letting them. The judge called for a short recess. Everyone stood. Tasha turned to me. "Can we talk?" she asked. I hesitated, then nodded once. She met me in the hallway behind the vending machines, where the hum of the soda machine made it feel like we were in a different world. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said. "I know. It started small. Rent was due. Then my car broke down. And then I couldn't stop. It was like once I started, I didn't know how to undo it." Her voice cracked. I looked at her. Not with pity. Just with the quiet stillness I'd learned from years of being blamed for other people's messes. "You could have called me," I said. "Not to bail you out but to talk. To be honest." She flinched. "I thought you hated us." I tilted my head. "You told people I was stripping in Atlanta. That was Marcus." "No, Tasha. You said it. I heard it." She bit her lip. "I was mad. You left." "You mean I escaped?" Her eyes brimmed, and for a moment I saw the sister I used to know. The one who drew hearts on my homework. The one who begged me to teach her how to write cursive. But she wasn't 12 anymore, and I wasn't her safety net. "Mom said you think you're better than us now," she said. "I am better than who I used to be. That's not arrogance. That's survival." She didn't reply. "Do you know what it's like," I continued, "to be told you're selfish for wanting your own life? To be called ungrateful for refusing to bleed for people who never bled for you?" Tasha looked down. "I did everything they asked," I said. "I paid bills I didn't owe. Gave up dreams I didn't deserve to lose. I worked 2 jobs while you were out drinking on Friday nights, telling people I thought I was all that. So no, I'm not here to save you. I'm here to watch you face what I would have faced if I hadn't left." She started to cry then. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just the quiet kind that leaks out when there's nothing left to protect. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what I said. For what I didn't say." He nodded. "Thank you." We stood in silence. "Will you be at sentencing?" she asked. "Yes." She turned to go, then paused. "You really never told Mom?" "No." "Why?" "Because she never asked. She just assumed I had nothing worth hearing." She nodded slowly, then walked away. When I returned to the courtroom, Marcus was waiting in the hallway. He didn't look like he wanted to talk, but that had never stopped him before. "You really played us, huh?" he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Played you? You were living rich while we struggled. I was living alone while you used my name to get loans you never paid." His jaw tightened. "You think you're the only one who had it hard," he snapped. I had to drop out of school to help Mom. You dropped out because you got arrested for fighting your professor. That was one time. No, Marcus, I said, my voice firm. You don't get to rewrite history just because I'm successful now. He stared at me for a long moment. You changed. I grew up. He shook his head. You think you're better than us. You keep saying that like it's an insult. He didn't respond. Just turned and walked away. But I didn't come here for redemption. Came to close the book. Court resumed. The judge recapped the charges, then said he'd delay sentencing until next week. Tasha's lawyer requested leniency again. The judge asked if anyone wanted to speak on her behalf. I didn't stand. I'd already said everything that mattered. Afterward, the courthouse slowly emptied. My mother waited by the exit. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her voice was low. You could have told me. I met her gaze. You weren't listening when I needed you. Why would you start now? She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. You're really governor. I nodded once. Her face twisted, not with pride but with confusion, like she didn't know what to do with the version of me that didn't need her approval. You think that makes you better than us? She asked. I leaned in slightly. No, but it does make me free. Then I walked past her, down the courthouse steps, into the daylight that didn't feel heavy anymore. I'd thought this trip would wreck me, that it would stir old ghosts and make me question everything I'd built. But all it did was remind me of why I left, and why I was never going back. I didn't go back to my hotel that night. Instead, I sat in my rented car 2 blocks from my childhood home, staring at the chipped white siding and rust-stained gutters, as if they could answer a question I hadn't asked yet. The porch light was off. The front yard was still mostly dirt, the same way it had been when I was 12 and tried to grow a flower bed using seeds I stole from the elementary school garden. Nothing had grown back then either. A memory hit me like a slap. Mama yelling at me through the screen door because I forgot to thaw the chicken. Tasha crying upstairs because Marcus had taken her favorite hair clips. Me scrubbing the kitchen floor at midnight while everyone else slept, because I had spilled Kool-Aid and didn't want to be called lazy again. I thought I'd buried all of that. But pain doesn't bury, it waits. It lingers like smoke. My phone rang. Camille again. I almost didn't answer, but I knew she'd call the state troopers next if I didn't. You okay? She asked, voice tight. Define okay, I said. Pause. You want me to call off tomorrow's meetings? I already told you to. Imani. Press knows. The footage of the judge recognizing you is viral. You're trending. Hashtag Governor Ghost. Course I was. They want a statement, she added. Something clean. Family-focused. Maybe a line about justice and grace. I snorted. Grace. That's rich. You know how this works. The public eats up a good redemption story. I'm not the one who needs redeeming. I know that, Camille said quietly. But you're also not the same woman who let herself get silenced. Don't forget how you got here. She was right, of course. She usually was. I didn't have the luxury of public rage. Not anymore. My anger had to be strategic, dressed in heels, smiling for cameras. But tonight I wasn't Governor Redd. I was just Imani, the girl who slept in a twin bed until she was 19, who got laughed at for dreaming too big, who washed her mother's uniforms while she cried in secret over missed tuition deadlines. I said nothing. Camille didn't push. She just said, "Call me when you're ready," and hung up. The house across the street used to belong to Miss D, an old widow who made the best cornbread in the world and let me read her tattered romance novels when Mama wasn't looking. The windows were boarded up now. Yard full of weeds. Probably condemned. I wondered if she'd died alone. Like I almost did once. They never knew. None of them. Not Marcus, not Mama, not even Tasha. The night I almost swallowed a bottle of expired sleeping pills in a motel 2 towns over because I had nowhere left to go. I'd spent my last $17 on a bus ticket and a pack of crackers. No ID, no job, no plan. Just emptiness and noise in my head. But I didn't do it. I threw them up. Wrote a list of things I hadn't done yet. Number 1. Make them regret ever calling me a waste. I went inside the house around midnight. The key was still under the third brick by the porch, just like always. I let myself in quietly. Everything was smaller than I remembered. The ceiling lower, the walls closer. The living room still had the same brown couch with a blanket draped over a busted spring. I stood in the doorway and just looked. The photos were still on the mantel. Graduation pictures, church portraits, smiling faces, except mine. Not a single one. There had been a picture of me, senior year in my blue dress, the only time I wore heels that weren't borrowed. But I remembered Mama taking it down the week after I left. Said it was too painful to see. More like too inconvenient. I moved through the house quietly like a ghost. The floor still creaked near the hallway. The light in the bathroom still flickered. I could hear the faint hum of Tasha's old stereo from her room. Mama must have moved it. Strange the things she kept. Then I saw the papers on the kitchen table. Court notices. Debt collectors. A foreclosure warning. So that was the real reason for the call. Not sisterly love. Not a mother's concern. Money. I sat down, picked up a piece of mail. Past due. 3 months. Final notice. No wonder they wanted me to show up. No wonder Marcus said, "We needed you." It wasn't about justice. It was survival. Mine, not theirs. I walked back outside, heart thumping. I wasn't angry. I was done. The next morning I wore black. Not for drama. For clarity. Black suited me. Sharpened my edges. Said don't touch in a way words couldn't. I arrived at the courthouse early. Walked straight past the cameras gathering outside. Some called my name. I ignored them. Let the silence speak louder. Inside, the courtroom felt heavier than before. Tasha sat at the defense table, head bowed. Her lawyer looked exhausted. Probably because he knew what was coming. Today was sentencing. The judge looked at me once, then at Tasha. "I've reviewed the documents submitted," he said. "And I've taken into consideration the character statements, though notably, your sister declined to submit one." Murmurs. Tasha didn't look at me. "Ms. Redd," the judge said, "you embezzled over $50,000 over the course of 14 months. Your actions were deliberate, concealed, and only revealed through a whistleblower investigation. You've shown minimal remorse and offered no restitution. I see no alternative but to sentence you to 18 months in state custody, with possibility of parole in 6. Mama cried out. Tasha didn't cry. She just stared ahead, hollow. The judge banged his gavel. Case closed. And still they looked at me. Like it was my fault. Outside the press swarmed. Camille had arrived, thank God. She intercepted them with a firm wave and practiced grace. "No comments from the governor at this time," she said, shielding me with her body. But I stopped, turned, faced the cameras. One woman asked, "Governor Redd, do you feel your sister's sentence was fair?" I met her gaze. My voice was calm, measured. "I believe in accountability for everyone." Another reporter. "Why didn't you speak on her behalf?" I stared at him. Because she had the same chances I did. And she chose differently. Gasps again. Questions shouted. Cameras flashed. But I walked away, unmoved. Back at the hotel, Camille closed the door behind us and exhaled hard. "You know that's gonna go viral, right?" she said. "Let it. Some people are gonna say you turned your back on your family. They turned their backs first." She hesitated, then asked the thing I knew she'd been holding in. "Did you ever love them? Any of them?" I sank onto the couch. Of course I did. That's the problem. I loved them too much. I gave until I had nothing left. And the moment I stopped bleeding for them, I became the villain. She didn't speak for a moment. Then softly, "You're not the villain." "No," I said. "But I am the end of their excuses." She didn't press again. I poured myself a glass of water and sat by the window, watching the sun paint the city gold. My sister would go to jail. My mother would keep hating me in silence. Marcus would blame me forever. But none of that was new. The only difference now. I wasn't broken anymore. I was powerful. And they finally knew it. A month passed. The news cycle moved on as it always does. Another scandal, another politician's downfall, another billionaire's PR tour. My name still trended now and then. Hashtag Governor Ghost, hashtag Red for Blood, hashtag Family Fallout, but it was no longer front page. People had opinions, of course. Cold, unforgiving, power-hungry. They painted me with every brush but the right one. Survivor. I never responded. Let them talk. In silence, I got more done than most people manage screaming. The real work resumed. Infrastructure bill. Prison reform committee. Emergency meeting about the budget deficit. I shook hands with senators who used to call me that girl from nowhere. I stood on stages where my father once swore I'd never belong. I signed laws with the same fingers that used to scrub floors. My calendar filled. My voice became its own storm. They stopped asking who I was. They started asking what I wanted next. And still, at night in the quiet, I thought about them. Not with regret, but with clarity. Tasha sent a letter from the state correctional facility. It arrived on plain white paper with careful cursive. No apologies this time. No dramatic pleas. Just 10 simple lines. I understand now. You weren't punishing me. You were protecting yourself. I couldn't see it when I was drowning in my own shame. But I see it now. And I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for what I expected you to sacrifice. You didn't owe me that. It ended with, if I ever get out and learn how to live without taking, I hope you'll answer when I call. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer by my bed. I didn't reply. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Some wounds don't require closure. Just distance. Marcus had gone quiet. His number lit up my phone twice after the sentencing, but I didn't pick up. Camille said he was ranting on Facebook about elitist politics and family betrayal. Let him. He needed someone to blame, and I was convenient. Mama never called. Not even once. But she started appearing in places she never used to. Standing at the back of press conferences, watching silently. I saw her once through the tinted glass of my car, just outside the Capitol, holding a brown paper bag and wearing the coat I bought her 10 Christmases ago. She didn't wave. Neither did I. I told myself I felt nothing. It was mostly true. But grief doesn't arrive all at once. Creeps in like fog. One night, I walked alone through the governor's garden behind the mansion. Barefoot because the earth still reminded me I was real. I stood beneath the live oak tree planted the year the state was founded. Its branches stretched wide like arms that had never failed me. There I let myself cry. Just once. No sound. No sobbing. Just tears, quiet and clean, falling into the soil like seeds. The next morning I built something new. Foundation. Project. The Redd Initiative. Funded in part by anonymous donors, but seeded by my own salary. A program for first-generation girls, aged 16 to 25, offering them mentorship, legal aid, mental health counseling and scholarships. No flashy branding. No politicians attached. Just results. The team I hired came from neighborhoods like mine. Social workers who knew what it meant to ration groceries. Therapists who'd grown up hearing they were too soft. Lawyers who'd fought their way into bar exams with second-hand textbooks and spite. Our first pilot house opened quietly in the same city I left 10 years ago. Not far from my mother's porch. The ribbon cutting was small. No reporters. Just young women, watching me with the wide, uncertain eyes I used to wear in every mirror. I stood before them in a simple black suit. No podium. My name is Imani Redd, I said. And I was told I'd never matter. That I was too sensitive. Too angry. Too much. If someone's ever made you feel like your dreams are too loud, your needs too heavy, or your voice too sharp, know this. You are not the problem. You are the solution. One girl cried. Another clapped. A third hugged me without asking. It was enough. Later that night, I stayed behind after everyone had left. I walked through the halls alone, ran my hand over the newly painted walls. Inside one of the bedrooms, there was a note on the desk. Handwritten. Anonymous. Thank you for proving that leaving doesn't mean giving up. It means saving what you can before it burns you too. I sat on the bed and held the note until my hands stopped shaking. I wasn't angry anymore. Not like I had been. I was just done explaining myself to people who refused to see me. And in that release, I found a kind of peace I didn't think existed outside of novels. A month later, I returned to the house one last time. The family home. The one with the peeling paint and the broken porch step and the memories that never stopped echoing. It was empty. Mama had moved out. Foreclosure, just like the letters warned. I didn't buy the house. I let it go. Some things aren't meant to be saved. They're meant to be learned from. But I walked through it anyway, room by room. In the kitchen, I found a photo tucked behind the old spice rack. It was the one Mama had taken down years ago. Me in my blue dress. Smiling without knowing how rare that moment would be. Someone had written something on the back in pencil. Faded but legible. She left, but she never forgot. I stood there, holding the photo, and let the truth of it wash over me. They had tried to forget me. Erase me. Bury me beneath shame and silence and sacrifice. But I didn't disappear. I rose. I returned. Not as the girl they mocked, but as the woman they couldn't control. And I did what they never expected. I forgave them. Not for their sake. For mine. Because vengeance doesn't build futures. But clarity does. And now I had both. As I stepped out of the house for the last time, the sky was soft with morning. I took one last look, then turned my back on the past, the pain, the ghosts, and walked toward the life I made with nothing but fire in my lungs and a refusal to stay small. I wasn't the governor they wanted. I was the one they needed. And finally I knew. I was never a failure. I was the foundation. And now the world would stand on it. If this story shook you, hit that like button. Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe for more true stories of betrayal, revenge, and powerful comebacks. New uploads every week. Because sometimes the best clapbacks come with a governor's title.